Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining Tuesday Talk Live. And this is Vera Sadler, your host for with VLS Coaching Services and, of course, Women of Life Ministries. And I am here this evening. I am so excited about this conversation and my guest. I have known her since she was in sixth grade or
Yeah,
maybe earlier. I think it was
yeah,
about sixth grade.
sixth
But
grade.
I'm here, and my guest tonight is Mrs. Nicole Jones with Workforce Innovator, and with the name of her company is Elite Workforce Solutions LLC.
Mhm.
We're going to get to that. But hey, welcome, Nicole. And thank you for
Thank
taking out of your
you.
busy evening to join us and to come tonight and talk to us. And I think this is going to be such a crucial conversation
Mhm.
for a lot of individuals that need to hear, need to know how to excel,
Yeah,
and especially in the workplace. And I
mhm.
love the name of your company, Workforce
Thank you.
Solutions, and what you've done. And when I wanted to invite you to come on this show is because I have, like I said, I've known you since you were in sixth grade, but
Right.
I've watched you over life and over time
Mhm.
never stop. That you have been like a force to be reckoned with
Aw,
in life, in work, and in just things that you want and what you see, and you go for it. So I
yeah.
wanted you to come on and, as a millennial, and just let people know,
Oh,
hey,
that title.
yes, that you can do it, and that no
Absolutely.
matter what life throws your way, pick yourself up, keep going, and let's get this
Absolutely.
done. So take a moment, introduce yourself to our audience, our listening audience, and then just we'll get right into some questions and some just conversation.
I love it. Well, good evening, everyone. Again, thank you so much for having me this evening. Like she said, my name is Nicole Jones. I am what I will consider a workforce innovator, which I love because that encompasses so much. I currently work at the Denver International Airport for the Center of Equity and Excellence in Aviation, which is one of our divisions that empowers people. So, one of my core focuses and a lot of the functionality of my portfolio is to work with kindergarten through college youth in all aspects of workforce development. And so, yeah, that's where kind of my my main focus is right now. And then the company itself, Elite Workforce Solutions, has been something I've been working on for a couple of years now, working with various clients. And that is exactly what it says. We have really elite ways of solving the workforce crisis that we're going through, not just now, but what we're looking
Mhm.
for in the future for what with what has happened over the past. So, looking forward to diving into all of those with you guys.
And pardon me, guys, for getting off screen. And I apologize in advance for any dogs you're going to hear in the background. I have a neighbor that her dog has been all day for past 2 hours.
Oh
So
man,
I apologize in advance. And I'm trying to block the noise. Give me 1 second.
gotta love dogs.
Oh my gosh.
It's for me,
I've
it's
never
dogs or
had this
babies,
happen.
so it's one or the other. Hope you
Yeah,
answer the
so
one, but
I really do apologize. But I wanted to really have this conversation with you, Nicole, and thank you for that introduction. And when you're talking about workforce innovator, but before you became a workforce innovator,
yeah.
as a young woman going through school, going through college,
Ooh,
um, having children. So the reason I wanted to, so you did not tell people that you're a mother of
I
five.
did. I did.
And so this is probably one of the launching points I want to say, because
Absolutely.
at one time you weren't a mother of five, you were a single mother, and
Yes.
you still had to grind and you had to make things happen.
All
You
the time.
had to get it done. So I
Mhm.
want you to one speak to how you've done, because I see your titles behind your name. And so some people may say, look, I have children.
Mhm.
I have to take care of my babies, and um I've watched you continually excel in education, and I'm huge on education because, as you know,
Absolutely.
I've continually excelled in my education. So speak to that aspect a little bit, Nicole, about how you've had to navigate being a single mom at first before you were married, but
Right.
being a single mom and excelling in education and in career.
For sure. That's a great question. And I'd be remiss to not mention my beautiful family because they are the reason why I've chosen this kind of path of being a lifelong learner. And that's what I've always prided myself on being. Taking it back a little bit further, I come from a family of educators. So my grandmother was a DPS, a Durham Public Schools educator for well over 20 plus years. My father, Dr. Nathaniel Howard, my late father, excuse me, Dr. Nathaniel Howard was an educator for over 30 plus years. So education is deeply rooted in my DNA. So there was never a point where I got the option to not be further educated. It wasn't necessarily when I graduated high school, it wasn't what are you going to do? It was where are you going and how fast can you get there? We didn't have those options. College was always talked about in my house. Higher education was always talked about. My mother has her law degree. She's a very successful real estate managing broker for the last couple of years. And so between her and my father, who has his doctorate, education was never not something that we promoted and was really valued in my household. So knowing that growing up, I knew that as long as I continued to educate myself, I would be able to continue to move forward. It was when I stopped and became comfortable with what position I was in at that time. That's where I was going to see the biggest struggle. So I got pregnant with my daughter my junior year of college. And I'll never forget, I told this story actually at my dad's funeral, where I came home for a baby shower. Didn't know I was going to have my daughter. So I had my daughter here in Colorado when I was actually in school in Tennessee. Stayed here for about a month. And about a month after, my dad was like, all right, it's time to go. And I was like, wait, what? I had a baby. What do you mean? Like, I'm here now. And he's like, yeah, that was never part of the plan. That was what happened. And I get it. But the plan was for you to graduate. So, figure it out. And that was one of the things my dad always used to say was figure it out. So I never liked it as a kid, and probably as an adult now, I slightly don't like it, but that's part of what keeps me moving is you got to figure it out. Whatever card you're dealt, whatever choices you make, good, bad, or indifferent on the consequences, you got to keep figuring it out. So after I had my first daughter as a junior in college, I actually went back to school where I went to Lane College. Shout out to all my lady and male dragons out there. We had a really good community. One of my really good mentors, Mr. Cedric Dedman, was one of the ones who really poured into me as a young lady who came back with the child. I had my professors that allowed my child to be in class. I had professors that watched my child while I was in class. I had a big, support group of friends. My girl's dad was there. His family was there in Arkansas when I was driving back and forth. So initially, that is where it all started, was when I figured out, man, if I could graduate college on time and with honors with a 1-year-old, there's not much I could have not do. Right? Like my senior year of college, I definitely made it harder on myself, but I knew I had to commit at that time because I knew there was no longer just me that I was responsible for and that I was going to have to answer to. But at some point, I'm going to have to answer to my child. And it's crazy because that child now is almost 14 years old, and she asked me questions all the time about what it was like and how I did it. And, was she the reason why I stopped or didn't do it? And I'm like, baby, it was the opposite. You were the reason why. I was like, okay, hey, no more of this, playing around. Like, you got to get it together because at the end of the day, she's going to be the one that you have to answer to. So moving forward, I have my other daughter, and I graduated college in 2011. I decided to go back to school and get my master's. I was a teacher at the time, so I followed the family line. I became a school teacher. I was a secondary science educator.
I remember.
Loved it like that. I knew at that moment, like education, although it was genetically in me, it was so much fun. I enjoyed everything I did. I have a ton of great students to this day who I keep in touch with. I knew that was a passion of mine to help elevate students. I also learned that it was hard to do that because I'd be in the middle of teaching a science class and I'd have a kid come in like, Miss, I got a problem. I need your help. And I'm like, oh, time out. Like I'm teaching class. So that's what made me go back to school and get my master's in psychology so I could become a school counselor. So fast forward, became a school counselor. By the time I was going through my master's at NYU, I did it online. I had 2 kids at the time. I was working full time. I was coaching basketball. I was very active in my community. I literally look at old Facebook posts where I just remember just being so consumed, where it was schoolwork and, trying to be a mom on the weekends and then working a full-time job, coaching basketball during the weekday. It was a lot, and learning how to balance is not something I ever truly accomplished, but it was the ultimate goal, right? Balance is great if you can do it, and shout out to all those who can, but I know that it's tough. So there are going to be times where you have to sacrifice and give more in certain areas of your life. And thankfully, I had a really great family support system that helped me with my daughters, that, my mom stepped in a countless number of times when it was like, hey, I have to do this or I have to go here. And my dad stepped in countless number of times. So it wasn't, as a single mother, I'm glad that I had the family support that I had, because that's what really allowed me to kind of progress through, get my master's, and then become a school counselor. So COVID hit the year I graduated.
Before you keep going, I want to stop right there.
Yeah.
I want to pause right there for a
Absolutely.
moment because you said a few very vital things that I don't want our audience to miss.
Okay.
Because first, you got pregnant while still in college. You came
I did.
home
I did.
and you thought, oh, okay, this is
That's it.
a pause point in life.
Yeah.
And dad said, no, it's not.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
It
And I
hurt
think
too.
we have so many yeah, when
People
people
like
saying,
why?
look, girl, get yourself together. This is
Yeah.
not the end of it of all things. And
Absolutely.
that I think I'm so excited and so proud that one, your dad didn't let you, your
Right.
family didn't let you stay in that. And sometimes tough love
Hmm.
hurts, and we don't
Hmm.
want to receive or accept it at that moment. But look where it took you. And
Right.
so, to all those that are listening to this conversation right now, you may have had a setback, but it's not to stop you. A
Right.
setback doesn't mean you stay there. A setback just means you dust yourself off. And by the
Absolutely.
grace of God, you get back up and say, okay, where do I go from here? I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't mean that you never can move forward again.
Right.
So that was one thing. You had a setback. And I'm not saying that your baby is not a good thing. I'm not saying Cassidy
Oh,
isn't
not at
a
all.
good move. That's I don't want people to get
Nothing. No,
that
no.
misconception that you would like, oh no, poor Cassidy, you're a roadblock. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying when life
She
brings you
motivated.
challenges that
Yeah.
you're normally that wasn't your initial plan, then
Yep.
you may have to adjust the plan.
That's it.
And that's what
It
dad
doesn't
said.
stop.
Dad said, adjust the plan. Your
Adjust.
plan was just going to go to school for 4 years and plow through, but you
Here's the
caused,
choices. You hear the
you
choice you
caused
made.
your choices cause a
What you gonna do
consequence
about it?
and
Yeah.
cause a monkey wrench in your plan, but
Mhm.
keep going. So that was one crucial thing you said. Number two, you talked about having a great support system.
Yeah.
And I know that because your friend, my daughter, who's made us like your
That's my
mom is
sister.
like
Yeah.
her mother.
Yeah.
I'm like your mother who made have this support system that maybe some other young women don't have.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell those young women what you said after having that support system was the balance, though, because if they don't have the support system that you and her may have had to allow you to do all of those things you were doing,
Right.
because you were doing a lot of things, you
A
were
ton.
coaching, you were going back to school, first time, back to school the second time,
Yeah.
and involved, and I know you were involved in sports even with your own children.
Hmm.
So the school counselor, you're working, you were doing all these multiple, wearing these multiple hats, like the Proverbs 31 woman. That's what I thought of when you were talking. I thought about this
You
awesome
know
woman.
what's crazy, Mom? So Desiree and I had a friend group in high school, and
Mhm.
it was four of us, and we made shirts that said Proverbs 31 women. So the four of us used to have a Bible study that we did. I don't even know if Desiree remembers this. We went to Hobby Lobby, we got iron-on letters, and we made black polos for like a spirit week or something. And on the bottom of it, it said Proverbs 31 women or Petre 1 women. I need to talk to her about that. But that's interesting that you said that because that was something, again, we're talking high school. I was a senior in high school, so 18, 17 years old,
Mhm.
when that was very clear what type of woman that was. And maybe we weren't there
And
yet.
what kind of women you have
Now,
become now in life. So
absolutely.
actually, you were prophetically speaking over your
Yes.
own lives in
Didn't
that,
even know it.
and
Didn't
didn't
even
even
know it.
know in that era
No.
what you that you prophetically proclaim something over your life. I'll have to get you to make me a shirt. I'll have to get you.
That's a whole
She
look.
makes
We're not
shirts,
there yet. But
audience
listen,
as well. You put
I
that
do.
on freeze on hold.
I know. So that is still going. It's just the time. I don't have the
Well, you
time.
got to squeeze mama's shirt out of there. I'll send
Yes,
you, and we'll think of a tagline.
absolutely.
But that support system. So for the young ladies who are listening who do not have the support system that Nicole had,
Mhm.
I want you to hear. She said, "Find balance,"
Yeah.
because I don't want them to miss that word. You said, "Find the balance," because you may not be able to do everything she did, but there are going to be crucial things
That you got
that
to
they
do.
have to do. What is the most important thing they had to do? And I know there may have been times where you had to make a choice. Okay, I can't do all this. You were starting
Ooh.
to lean into. Was there ever a time you felt like, okay, all of this is too much, so I have to make a choice?
All the time. No. Yes. So I had to choose kind of where my time was allocated. So there was a point where I was coaching high school basketball. I was coaching basketball for the rec centers. I was trying to be the mom, so my kids were in activities. I was active at my church doing liturgical dance. I was in school. I was teaching, or I was running our concession stand, or I ran student council. There were so many times where I was like, okay, at some point, something can't really get all of my attention and time. And so that was the hardest part for me, because I'm never the person that says no. I'm like, yes, I'll find a way. Just let me figure it out. And in hindsight, there is no figuring it out. Whenever you say yes to something, you're actually saying no to something else. And that's not a bad thing. It took me such a long time to realize it's not a bad thing. Like the word and the response no is actually okay. And it's hard, right? For someone who is very active and gets out there and has great relationships. I love building relationships. I love interacting with people, like networking. It fuels me. There are times, especially now in this part of my career, where I'm learning the answer no is okay. It doesn't have to be no, but it doesn't have to be no and an explanation, but it's not right now. And I appreciate the offer, right? Like that's hard for me. And people that know me know that is really hard for me, but I'm learning how important that is, because when you're showing up 2% in every part of your life, that's not balanced, that's not healthy, and you're actually not able to give your best. And so people are going to start to kind of question, well, where are her priorities, right? Where are your priorities? And that was a tough look in the mirror. What are my priorities? Well, one is always going to be my kids, first and foremost. So now I make decisions more so where it's like, hey, how's it going to affect my family, right? It went from just me to my kids to my family, because I have a husband and I have 2 bonus sons. What does that look like? So yes, there absolutely were times that happened, but that's where you look at, what are your priorities? What's going to matter the most right now and in the future, right? Like how's it going to affect you moving forward? If it's something that you're wanting to do, but it's not quite the right time, it's okay. That opportunity, if it's meant for you, will come back to you. So you don't have to worry about committing to every little thing right now. That was a really hard concept for me to learn. Extremely hard.
Oh my, that's so good. That's just such a good comment and such a good point for people to realize. You don't have to try to be superwoman, superman, but superwoman. And I think that's where we, especially women, we
Yeah.
want to be all and do all for everyone, and it is no. And as you probably know, from we're connected, and you see that I'm huge on those boundaries too. But I had to learn.
Yeah.
I had to learn, because I felt like if I say no, I'm going to offend someone. If I say no,
Yes.
it's going to be hard. But I have learned that no is self-care. And
It
then no
really
is saying yes. And I love the way you said, if I'm showing up 2% in all these other areas, that's not correct.
is
So
not.
if I say no to maybe something that I don't have the capacity to fulfill at this moment, then what I say yes to, I'm showing up 100%. I'm
I'm giving
giving
you
my best. And whether it's
absolutely.
my family, it's a obligation. It's not an obligation, but it's something that I've committed to. I
Yeah.
can show up full force, and no is not an ugly word.
It's
And it
not.
can be, and it's not always no, I don't want to. It's sometimes no, not right now. No, that's not for me. It's not an
Yeah.
option for me, but learn to. So I did a seminar probably last August
Mhm.
that was the power of your yes. And
Yeah.
it's not no, but it's power of saying yes to yourself. When do you say yes and when do you say no? And a lot of people don't understand the power of their own voice and their own
Absolutely.
yes, and
It
owning
takes a minute to
what's
find
good
that.
for you. So
Yep.
now let's keep going through your journey, because this journey of this powerful young woman that you are, I consider you like a force to be reckoned with
Oh,
in
thank
the
you.
not just the workforce, but as a young woman that
Mhm.
is an example to me. You're a mentor, an example that other young women, and like you said, your Cassidy is a teenager. She's going to go off to high school,
I
but
know, it's so
if she
scary.
tracked her mom's record, she sees mom never stopped.
Mm-mm.
And so then mom gets married, and you had the 2 girls, you got 2 bonus sons, and then you had another baby.
I just had
So
a
now you
baby.
have a family of 5, and you have to, and you're still educating yourself. You're still
Yeah.
doing these things, and I'm watching your career just grow and blossom. You're
Oh,
doing talks. Tell us how you're managing this family of 5 and still finding time to continue to grow
yeah.
and be this force to be reckoned with, but also be mom, because I do see the things with the children.
Yeah.
I see it. I mean, and it's not that you hide it.
No.
That's why I wanted you to come on the show and say, tell other women this is possible.
Yeah. So I think to start answering that question, it really happened. That transition happened when I left education as a traditional educator and school counselor. And I said, okay, something like I want to be able to contribute to the lives of students, of young people, of those that are trying to find their voice and who they are. But I don't want to do that in the school setting anymore. So that's when I transitioned to working for the city and county of Denver. I worked with a department of, it's DITO, and I'll figure out the acronym later. I'll get there for you. But I most of what I did was oversaw a career-wise apprenticeship program for young individuals in the city. And one of the main things I came in, we had an agreement with them. I came in and one of the first requests I had for the program was that out of the 12 positions we had, I wanted no less than 6 males of color. And you could have heard a pin drop on a virtual call. They were just like, what do you mean? I know this because I'm looking at my household. I'm looking at my family makeup. I know the opportunities in my community that are present and not present. So how do I do that, right? How do I make sure that if I'm in this position to be able to connect and be a community connector, what does that look like? So when that happened, that's where I kind of started going into a lot of leadership programs. So you'll see some of the awards behind me from the Urban Leadership Foundation of Colorado. Shout out to Dr. Ryan Ross and the entire organization. That is where I first kind of started to learn you got to know who you are in order to pour into others. And I thought I knew who I was, right? Like I thought as an educator, I went into the family business. Of course, I'm a teacher. That's what I do. That's what my whole family has done. But what does that look like when that identity is no longer a part of your identity? What does it like when you have to re-identify who you are? So I started getting in these leadership programs. I did the Mortgage Family Foundation fellowship. I met a really great mentor, Dr. Jocelyn Rainey, out in Brooklyn. She was phenomenal in my transition in the space of being transparent and authentic as a African American female leader. That was huge for me, right? And I started to seek out other women in this CEO professional world because this was not a world that I was super used to because coming from education is a little bit different. So what does that look like? But then I realized I was coming from education where my kids were always present. My kids were in everything I did as a teacher. If I'm running a concession stand, they're running it too. If I'm going on a trip or we're doing something where my kids can be there, they're there too. My students literally knew my children and loved them, right? So how does that transfer into this world now of corporate America, so to say? That again was a challenge, but I kind of took it in a sense that this is what we're doing. So there's a picture of me that was posted about a year ago after I had my last child, Miles. And I'm literally talking in front of an audience and I have him strapped to me. So he's strapped to me in his little carrier, but I'm talking to an audience because we're doing an event for my job with the airport right now. And the picture was taken. I didn't even think about it until the lady at my job emailed it to me. And she said, hey, I wanted to share this with you. It was at that very moment I realized my kids are there. There's no choice for them not to be integrated into everything that I do. There's a lot of people that will try to separate. Well, this is my family and I want to keep working family separate. And I get that. Sometimes your job calls for that. Mine did not though. And I didn't want that to be the narrative of, well kids, mommy has to work. So you got to go over here and you can't partake in this. I learned best through experience. I will say that my mother had me in rooms networking and at events and doing open houses with her and being places with her as a child. So seeing that, my mom, Angela Hutton Hall, who is Jamaican, we like to say, she never stopped moving. So I had that example way early in life. But now to know that as a mom, that makes sense as to why I saw that. My kids are in spaces that they're everywhere. So I've had my daughter come to a gala with me. So that was the first time she was at a formal event. I kid you not, we get there to the table, we sit down, and she just dives into the dessert on the table. Of course, I didn't think to tell her, baby, it's on the table, but you can't eat it until it's about dessert time. She doesn't know that, right? So I'm like, exposure, right? So my kids have been very much a part of, and my entire family. So my husband and I both work at the Denver International Airport. We are very much a part of the work that we do. So we bring our kids to work for a Take Your Kid to Work Day, which is what we call Aviation Learning Day. We try to find a way to make sure our kids are always involved in what we're doing. If they can't be directly involved, they still get to see it in some way, shape, or form. So if I have an event that's usually after work hours, my kids are coming with me. Unless it's something that children just cannot be at, I totally understand that. But it's rare that I don't bring them with me. So I think that's one of the ways that it's been able to be balanced is because I work with youth. So thankfully my job, it's the events I go to, kids are usually going to be there. So I'm bringing mine too. And I think that's the best thing because my kids have been to career fairs after work hours. They have gone to events with me. Like I was saying, that picture was huge for me because it let me know that I was still working in that narrative of where my kids are going to be a part of it. So yes, I'm at a professional event giving a conversation, but I also have my 6-month-old strapped to me because at that moment, nobody could hold him. He wasn't at the stage where he was like, yes, I'll just go to anybody. So I just strapped him to me. But I think really calling that out wherever you are in the space you're working in is huge. That my family is a part of me and what I'm doing. It's not going to minimize the quality of my work. It's not going to distract me, right? It also puts me in a frame of mind to understand my kids are watching everything that I do. So there are times when I'm going to get questions about, well, mom, why did you go here? And why did you do that? And, they see me going to events all the time. When I was doing this leadership program, the Urban Leadership Foundation, I was pregnant with my son. So I actually gave birth to my son while in this program, came back, graduated, and they've just been a huge network. So I think making sure that your network understands that as a employee of this company, as a member of this organization, as a whoever, whatever title or space you're in, if you have a family, that's a part of you. That's a part of what makes you able to do the work you're doing, whether it's whatever field you work in, right? Like I'm fortunate enough, my field is still focused around students and youth, but even if it didn't, my kids would probably still be there. I can't say that it wouldn't. Like I said, I went with my mom and my dad so many places growing up. It never crossed my mind that maybe kids shouldn't be here because we were there. My parents made sure we were exposed. And so I think exposure was what really led us to understanding how to navigate this world that we're in right now professionally.
When I think about exposure and even the things that you want to do and how you said you went in with you wanted to have so many young African American men of color in that program and exposing your children, and just the comment you made about whatever space you're in, whatever place you're in, I think it's setting a standard, and also the communication, because the place where I'm working or what I'm doing, kids, you bring your children may not necessarily be allowed in the arena, in the space, but communicating that my family is more important than punching a clock 9 to 5.
Those boundaries, we talked about it. You mentioned that a while ago. Those boundaries you got to set.
And if we don't set those, then I think our children will also sense, like you said, they're watching everything we do. So if you don't, they get the sense that mom's work is more important.
Yeah.
Or mom's going to throw us to the side for work because she's chasing almighty dollar and she's not. But what you said was a standard that showed your children, look what I'm doing. Look how I'm trying to elevate. I'm trying to not just grow myself, but grow the community. And let me show you what I'm doing to grow the community. You could be a part of this. I did see the picture when you had your son on the thing, and it didn't look like, at first I was like, oh, is that Nicole? Does she have the baby strapped to her? It just speaks to, and then also, even though our families are important, we don't have to let that diminish our ability to be professional, do our jobs, because some people sway to the other end of the spectrum. They use the children as a crutch. The children, they become unprofessional in their jobs, their duties, their responsibilities. But you have navigated this. It hasn't stopped you from being a professional, from excelling. I want to speak to something else that you mentioned that is huge. And I think a lot of people, I found when I was a manager, I remember one time I had a young lady come in. She was new in her position. And I told her, I said, the best thing you can do for yourself is to get a mentor. I said, I am your manager. I cannot be your mentor. And your mentor is a peer who is excelling in their position that's just like yours. Get a mentor. That young lady would not get a mentor. And I promise you, she did not grow and she did not do well. She wound up leaving her position because she could not grow and she could not understand the functions that she needed to just really get and hit those target points. But that's so important. I wanted to bring that point out, that you stated that mentorship, like you said, is vital.
Yeah, it's so I mentorship is something I have seeked out since I was first coming to the professional world. And I think it was because as a kid, I had so many community figures that poured into me, and I knew the importance of that. Growing up at the church that I did at Shorter Community AME here in Denver, that we were raised by the church. So it wasn't, uncommon for sister so and so to pull me aside, or, this person to take me in. And, we have these kind of moments where we build each other up. And I think that is a lot of why to this day I seek out mentorship actively. But I've also learned that there has to be different levels of the mentors you have in your life, right? So like you said, there are peer mentors. There are individuals who I am going to work really well with, and individuals that I am going to be able to pour into and talk to in that space, right? We can work with and support and build up each other. But there's also a level of mentorship where I seek out ladies who are in roles that I want to be, that I see myself being in. So I have my mentors right now. I have dinners and lunch with these ladies. I prioritize that time. So it's like, hey, do you have a moment? Do you have a time for lunch? And if you have someone in that role that is willing to have those conversations with you, don't waste that time. I don't go into those mentor conversations taking those for granted, or thinking that everybody and the entire company gets these. No, I know that if they've taken time to meet with me, it's because they want to pour into me. So I'm coming with questions. I'm coming with examples. I prepare for these meetings like I would any other meeting, because I don't want to say a privilege. I don't want it to seem like it sounds like this ivory tower type sense, because it's not. It's a matter of you seeking out women. And again, if you're a man, seek out men, whoever, seeking out the person who is going to be able to pour into you in the way that you see them because of their leadership or because of where they're kind of moving in their lives. So I have quite a few that are airport based. I have mentors that are outside of the airport. I had mentioned Dr. Jocelyn Rainey. She was my mentor through a program that I had. She's all the way in Brooklyn, and I still talk to her. Not as much as we want to because we're both busy. She's the CEO of the Brooklyn Community Foundation, but I talk to her a lot. My supervisors at my job, there's Andrea Albo and Penny May. I speak to them a lot. These are ladies who I have seen in action. And so I know where they're coming from. I don't have to guess or question their leadership ability or style. And it's very similar to mine. So I'm not going to seek a mentor out who we maybe just don't have a lot in common. And not that that's, yes, you want to challenge yourself, but in a mentor space, you want someone to be able to connect with you. You want to connect with them. Dr. Amanda Kelly, she is the CEO of Firefly Autism. We come from totally different worlds, but that is a mentor who I genuinely value having those conversations. And even as males, I have male mentors that allow me to kind of see things from a perspective that I wouldn't, because I'm a woman and maybe I didn't catch certain things. So there, Dr. Ryan Ross that I mentioned, there are individuals, Cedric Devin. These are people who I go to say, hey, let me bounce an idea off of you. Let me think about something real quick to understand this. So that mentorship is vital. Because I don't know everything. I don't want to know everything, right? But if I'm seeking out actively individuals who are in positions or roles that I'm aspiring to be in, that's where I'm going to get the most information. And I want to be able to see that and have them tell me, hey, Nicole, this is great. Or let me not say there are always times they're like, hey, let's talk about this, because you should have did that, right? Like that transparency and that psychological safety to be able to share in that space is huge. So seeking out that mentorship wherever you are in your career, whether you're an executive senior level or whether you are entry level and starting out, that's imperative. Like you have to have that, because that's where you're going to start to see where iron sharpens iron, and you're going to want to foster those relationships as long and as often as you can.
I'm so glad you just explained that it's the different levels, and it's not even just career; it's also in your personal life. And I often say for like women, we're seeking out mentors. We're asking a single woman how to manage our marital life, or we're asking someone who is in debt how to, grow millions. That's not how you go to, you want to see how to be a million, how to have financial wealth. You go to someone who's a millionaire, right? You look at people who are doing this thing well. And that's what the mentorship is about. It's about sitting at the feet of someone who's doing it, who's making it, who is where you want to be. And that's it. That's what,
and that's what I'm saying. There's different types of mentors too. Like my mentors also come in the form of my really good friends. So your daughter Desiree and I, we talk in regards to career wise, and then how am I going to be able to move in that aspect? And then I also have peer mentors who I've picked up along the way. So these are ladies who I met probably just a year and a half ago, but without them, my trajectory of my career would not have pivoted the way that it did without that support and just having someone to, again, pull my collar and say, Nicole, hey, that's great. Or even sometimes, I don't want to say make me cry because they did, but we're not going to talk about that. But have those real conversations where it's like, hey, you need to get, like, what are you doing? Fix it now. And then when you fix it, we can talk. But until you fix it, nothing I can do for you. So, I have to give credit where credit is due with my mentors in that space, because that also mattered. And it definitely had a huge impact because there was someone who was lateral with me, or we're the same age, or, we have something in common to where it's like, hey, I can kind of see this, and maybe you need to fix this a lot. So, with my friend Talani Granger, she owns the Granger Agency, and Tanoa Manuel, she is the CEO of Sid Consulting, and Charlene Moss, who is the CEO of Working With Them. I mean, these are all ladies who operate in spaces where they are killing it, flat out, right? I needed that mentorship too. So like you said, there's levels, there's different types. You got to know where to plug them in your life, and you'll learn that over time. I didn't know, that ahead of time, but you learn that in time.
Yes. And what I want to, I guess, speak to even now is when you said you'll learn it, you have to be willing. I think you have to be willing to be transparent, stretch yourself, have an open ear. It takes a willing individual, because unless a person is willing, then it's like hitting a block. So, like, shameless plug for myself here as a coach. Hey, some of you need the services that I offer as a coach. You you need someone like myself to come along and walk alongside of you, and just, we don't tell you what to do. We're a little bit different than a mentor, quite different than a mentor, but we just walk alongside you because it's already there. And we just pull out of you. We just help you get from being stuck to where. So some of you need coaching services, some you need mentoring, some people may need therapy. There's all kind of helps that get you. There's all kind of helps that get us from, like, you were a counselor for some people. They say, Mr. Cole, okay, I need to give you this, but there's so much help. But you have to be willing. I mean, I've talked to people that they know they need the service. They know they need the coaching, but they haven't been willing to come let a person one. And then not only is it just willing you have to be willing mentally, emotionally, and oh boy, am I going to probably get an egg on the face from this one, but financially. We have to be willing to invest. You have went and you've gotten an education, you continue to educate yourself, you had to pay for that. So to grow, we have to be willing to invest in ourselves. And sometimes that means stop the eating out, give up a cup of coffee a week, because if people think about what coaching services, what counseling services, what mentorship sometime in the programs that you've invested in, it means sacrificing some of the other stuff that is not really feeding our soul, not really feeding us mentally, not really feeding us physically or emotionally, and taking those same bucks, those same dollars, and investing
more different.
Yes. And making it
all that stuff becomes, it's optional until it's not, right? Until you hit a wall and you're just like, oh man, I need some help. You could have had this help 2 months ago, but you decided that trip to wherever was more important at the time. And it may have been more important for your mental health or whatever you do at the moment. But at some point, you're going to have to financially invest in this space in yourself. So a lot of the ladies that I just mentioned, they have companies where I'm going to, myself included, am going to have to figure out what investment am I going to make so that Tanoa can be my business coach, and Charlene can work to increase capital, and Talani can make sure my insurance are like, this is all a network of individuals like yourself who are coaches, where we don't see the services as necessary until we hit those walls, until we have those moments of breakdown, until we have those moments of truth where it's like, man, I got to get this together. And we got to stop being so reactive and start being proactive. And that investment comes from that. It's an investment in yourself. Yes, you're paying someone for this service, but do understand that they're giving you something in return that you aren't able to give yourself. That's the reason why you invest in these spaces, because it doesn't seem tangible at the moment because you're not getting a product tangibly back in your hand, right? But what you're getting is the knowledge and the framework and the foundation and the checkpoints, all the things that you're probably not going to do for yourself. That's where you can, hey, I'm going to go reach out to my coach over here, and she's going to tell me how to operate in this space or how to be successful in this space. Because if I could have done it myself, I would have done it by now, right? So
Mhm.
at what point do you make the investment and you say, okay, I got to quit playing and move to this next level? Myself included. I'm at that point right now where I'm like, all right, it's time to transition and excel. But I'm going to need some help. I'm going to have to figure out what's going to make me successful in these spaces. And I need to have the right people on my team. Someone
Yes.
like yourself is that's your team. So a team is not an I thing, right? A team is we are going to do this together. So you got to find your team.
Mm.
Easier said than done, but the worth the time and effort that you're going to put in that space immediately.
So that's a great segue into my next question, which was going to be, what is on the horizon for Nicole Jones and family?
Oh,
Where do you see yourself going and growing, as well as your family?
yeah.
And how do you see taking yourself there?
So a couple months ago, I would not have been able to give you a really solid answer to this question because I, again, hadn't sat down and had a conversation with myself. To where it's like, hey, what are you doing? And my sister, God, I'd be remiss if I didn't miss my sister. She's or mention her. She is probably the most influential coach in my life. So we're 19 months apart, but she is still my big sister in every sense of the way. So there are a lot of things now since my dad passed away where it's like, all right, I'm going to my mom and my sister, and most likely me and my sister will be like, all right, what'd your mom say? Okay, great. Let's talk about how this, what do you want to do now that we have this, this information? So I put everything together. Knowing this, knowing where I'm headed right now, I am being pulled and called into more of an entrepreneurial space. Not that I haven't been an entrepreneur before. So I started my very first company back in 2019, and which is the one you mentioned before. I started a t-shirt press company out of a need. Like I've told you, me and Desiree were at Hobby Lobby ironing on letters to shirts back in high school. So this is something I have always wanted to do. I always matched my daughters growing up. So I was like, you know what? I need to figure out how to do this. YouTubed it, bought a press. What do you know? I have a business, a couple of years ago, and it was amazing, phenomenal. And I really got to pour into it because of COVID. So I was shipping out orders, right? COVID ended, work picked back up, things happen, right? Now I've started to see all these leadership programs I've done, all of the professional development that I have done. What's next, right? And I love what I do right now with the airport. Love it. I get to work with youth to introduce them to the world of aviation, which is very few and far between, especially in our neighborhoods. No one told me to go be an air traffic controller because they make you retire at 52, 55, and you're making six figures in your retirement. Who knew that? Not me. So I love to be in that space where I can tell students and bring them to this world of aviation and see what one of the largest airports, business airports in the world does, right? But I also started to learn where my superpower, it really lived. And that was encouraging and empowering individuals to take charge of what they want to do with their lives. So I was like, okay, maybe I should be in the coaching space. No, that's not quite it because my mind, I do too much. I run around. I'm too active. I like group settings. I'm good with one-on-one, but give me the group, right? So that's where I started to really define Elite Workforce Solutions. So we are a company which I recently kind of niched this company, but I really want to help companies build out intern and apprenticeship programs. So in the state of Colorado, registered apprenticeships have really increased their funding. Our governor, Jared Polis, is a huge advocate of apprenticeships. There's a House bill right now that's going to get passed, hopefully, that is putting more money and resources into building out apprenticeship programs. I currently run and oversee interns at the airport as well as apprenticeships, and I've done that in this space for quite some time. So also becoming an educator or having been an educator, I saw what needed to be happening. Students didn't want to just go to school anymore. Where can I take what I've learned and apply it immediately? I don't want to have to wait till after college. I want to have to wait till, I'm in my career. How can I learn what I learned right now and then apply it as a 16, 17, 18-year-old? So a lot of companies are either do not have the capacity to run a full internship program. And I don't just mean having them come in and work, but what professional development are you offering? What networking opportunities are you offering? How are you building up this person? Because the return on investment is a no-brainer. If you pour into this person or this intern for 2-3 years, then you're ready to hire them immediately coming in the door. They're not entry level. They just did entry level. Now they're ready to hit your workforce in the way that you need it and the way that these strikes have been happening and companies have been laying off. We got to make sure we are well diversified in our own tools, in our toolbox. So what does that look like, right? Doing an internship or a state registered apprenticeship, let's say you're an adult and you've worked in manufacturing for the last 10 years, but now you want to transition into finance. There should be an apprenticeship that you're able to segue into that, not feel like you're walking into a place speaking a foreign language, but you also get the training and development and certifications that you need to be successful in this space. But you're able to work in this space as you're doing that. That's necessary right now. A lot of folks had to learn how to pivot after COVID, and nobody knew how, right? We were all like, wait, we got to do something different. But I was, yeah, try again. What are we going to do? That shocked and scared a lot of people. So now individuals are starting to learn, okay, I got to invest in putting tools in my tool belt. So as the company Elite Workforce Solutions is taking off and we are gaining momentum, we're learning how we're working with different clients. What is it that's necessary? We still really focus on building out those youth internships and adult apprenticeship programs in those spaces because they're necessary. You got to have space for people to grow. And as a company, if you're not investing in your workforce pipeline right now, 5-10 years from now, what are you going to do? Because I guarantee you all them folks who have all those years of experience are going to be long gone and retired. How do you make sure you retain what they've learned, what they've invested in the company, what you've taught them, what they've taught themselves? How does that get passed to the next generation to make sure your company is sustainable? So that's where I was like, okay, let's laser focus in that area. So as I'm still working with the airport, I still, like I said, I love the work that I'm doing there. We are doing quite a bit at the airport. I also know that there's a need and there is a space for the work that I'll be doing with Elite Workforce Solutions. So that's the next mode of transition, and also looking to hire people. This work I can't do by myself. I don't want to do it by myself. Like I said before, I got to find a team. And I know too many well-qualified individuals who are going to be able to be on this team with me. We're going to work as a unit to really bring this particular topic to the forefront of these companies, even the ones that don't know they need it right now. Once we've explained it and we've had these conversations, they're like, oh, man, you're right about that, right? What does that look like? But where's my ROI? That's what every company wants to understand, right? That's what we do really well, is helping them see that ROI is really more tangible than they think it is. So in that space, working with Elite Workforce Solutions as a CEO and workforce innovator there, and then also being at the airport, that's where I plan on landing this year in 24. And then hopefully the following year, this can be something that is, like I said, the team is being developed. And eventually that's where the transition is going to happen. Because again, this is something I prayed about, something I've been working with a lot of individuals to really realize and manifest and really see how this is going to work, because it's a passion of mine. And I get so excited talking about it because I know the need that it has. And I understand the success and the profitability that comes with it. It's just a matter of making sure I have the right team to explain that and grow that. So I'm excited in those two spaces for sure.
Wow. I can hear your passion talking about it. I can hear how excited. Just hearing how, one, the return on investment. If companies could really realize that, and I think it too has to come from top down, because you go in and you work with managers, and you have so many managers or leaders or higher level administration, and they think, oh, if we pour into this company, then they're going to leave, or this person, they're going to leave us. It's like, listen, when you really pour in and you grow the individual and you help them develop, you have people that are loyal. Right. And they want to continue to grow within the company.
There you go.
It helps sustain. You have sustainability. You have all of that within the organization. But even if they do, but I love that concept where you're saying you have these individuals that are going to retire. And then what do they do with all this wealth of knowledge? Because some of that knowledge is not just, you can look it up on the company internal website. This is knowledge. This is learned. This is experience that you want them to be able to pass down the train. So that was one really key point that you brought out. And then the other thing that you were saying is, and I remember this when I was transitioning years and years ago, you know how they'll tell you you want to transition from what you're doing, but you need these different tools you want to put in. But you feel like, I can't just leave what I'm doing without any income.
Yep.
How do I make this switch, or how do I get this knowledge? One, it's cost effective and I can't do it. But if you have these people that really saying, okay, I need here, but I need to be able to get paid while I'm doing it, because this is such a powerful.
I'm excited.
Oh my gosh. If people grab hold to it, oh my gosh.
Well, because you don't realize how many transferable skills. The transferable skills are there. You have folks who've been in the industries for 10 years. You can take the same skills they had in that industry and apply to this industry. The content is different. You can teach content. That's Googleable. That's work process, workbook. I can teach you the content, but sometimes I can't teach you those skills. And you have needed to have those skills years ago, right? Like I'm looking at experience. So one thing we're doing at the airport right now that I really have enjoyed kind of leading in this effort, how do we get to skills-based interviewing and skills-based hiring? I don't need you to have 10 years experience working with this, software, this particular content. Do you understand critical thinking, problem solving, innovation? If you have those skills, I can teach you the content. That's not an issue, right? So the skills-based shift that's going to be happening, regardless if we like it or not, it's coming because you have folks that are transferring one industry to the next. I cannot wait because companies have to understand as long as that person has that skill, you can teach them the content all day. I can teach someone who's been working in a space to go be a teacher because I can teach you how to teach. I can't teach you how to be
a critical thinker.
Classroom management and problem solving and understanding how to work with students. That's something I can't teach you, right? The work I do right now, anybody can learn how to do this, but do you have the skills that's required to do it? Do you understand how to manage stakeholders, effective communication? Do you understand when you have to have time management? Right? Like these are things that if you understand those skills, you can be successful in any different content, right? So people have to really start getting away from, do you have 10 years in manager experience? Maybe not, but I got 5 kids and you can't tell me I don't manage 5 kids. That's a skill. I don't care what nobody says. We got calendars color-coded. I got to know drop off, pick up, snack, who's in charge, where are we going with? That's time management. That's critical thinking, right? Like these are skills that are easily transferable to any job. So that's really where this passion and this business is coming from. And I cannot wait. This is a space where I know that the success is there. And I don't mean company success. I mean success of the individuals who are going to come through this particular company. The individuals that are going to see themselves in different careers and different industries because they know now how to take those transferable skills and apply it to the next step of their life.
You hit on a point that it has been such, as a manager, as a leader, has been crucial to me. I've said that so many times that I can teach content, I can teach the work, and I can teach processes. I can teach processes all day long, but I cannot, those intrinsic values that's supposed to be in a person, I cannot fabricate those in the individuals. So I think a lot of problems we have in the workforce right now is that just what you said, people are pulling out resumes and they're looking at processes instead of just getting a resume and then talking to a person and discerning intrinsic value. The way a person communicates, the way a person talks. Because if I can get a person that can communicate, if I can get a person that if you give them a problem and they critically think about that, and that I can teach you processes. And then I think another thing that happens in the workforce is we have an individual that you hire for a position and we say they're not a good worker, but we have misaligned processes and people for so long, and then we're displacing
we're
people.
Confused. Like, what happened? You were so good in the interview. You didn't ask the questions you needed to ask because you didn't.
Right, because we're misaligning people. For those that have been listening to this conversation tonight, this is Vera Sadler with VLS Coaching, and I have been here tonight with Nicole Jones, and she's been talking about being a workforce innovator and but how she has successfully managed and just taken her how do I want to say her drive, how her drive has been from going from being an educator to a counselor to now helping individuals realize how you grow and how you learn and how you keep transitioning, but you don't stop. And I'm going to go back to what you said from the very beginning, that your dad said, figure it out, and how she is trying to help individuals figure it out in life. Nicole, do you have any final remarks or encouragement or comments for those of us that are listening? And once again, people, I really apologize for the dogs that are barking tonight. I'm sure you can hear them. Look, they're, but I apologize.
Just like you said, the 2 things that I've been pushing myself this year have been to figure it out and make it happen. Those 2 things and those 2 things alone is what has been driving my desire to want to keep moving forward, to want to keep being engaged, to want to keep taking advantage of opportunities, taking calculated risk. It's a risk to go into the entrepreneurial world. No, that's not a light task in itself. And so How do you pour into yourself in that space? Well, you figure it out and you make it happen. Imposter syndrome is going to come, right? Not thinking you are, you're going to fail. You're going to get a no. Someone's going to tell you flat out no. I'm going to tell you right now. That first no is going to be like, oh my God, but I was so ready and I prepared. It's okay, right? The no doesn't mean never. It just means not that person, not right now, or not in this space. But you got to keep moving. So figuring it out and making it happen, because you only really fail when you quit. It's when you quit is when you're like, oh, well, I failed. Well, fail forward, right? I learned way more from the no's than I do from the yeses. I learned way more from the, that did not work. What do I need to do different? From the, oh, that was perfect. Don't change it, right? Like, where do you challenge yourself at? And it's okay to not know it all. That's where you constantly have to seek knowledge. So figure it out, make it happen, and commit to being a lifelong learner. You can never overeducate yourself. There's not that doesn't exist, right? Educate yourself in whatever space you feel comfortable in. LinkedIn, articles, formal training, classrooms, your mentors, people that you have in your life. If you don't have a strong support system, create one. That's part of you building your network, right? Your network is your net worth. Create that network, create that space. And once you do that, nurture those relationships and keep it going. Because the power of your perspective, when you look at something as an obligation, you're going to operate in that. I have to do this space. When you look at something as an opportunity, the way you operate is totally different, because now you're like, man, what if it could be this? And what if it could be that? And that's why I like to call myself, a workforce innovator and a visionary, because I'm going to always dream big and think outside the box. I'm going to think of the biggest thing possible. But then I'm going to try to find a great team that helps me level set and says, all right, Nicole, here's how we get to there. We can get there. Let's do it. But here's how we get there. So looking at something as an opportunity and not as an obligation, that's where you're going to have to figure it out and make it happen, hands down. So, and you can do it with kids. Awesome. Bring them with you.
That's awesome. Again, guys, this has been Nicole Jones with Elite Workforce Solutions, LLC. Yeah. And when you guys get a chance, just go to her website. If you're in the Denver, I would say Denver, outside. Or even outside. Okay. Absolutely. So she is willing to help you in whichever. Reach out to her. Get some information about how she can help you and your company get the best return on investment with your life. Nicole, thank you so much for taking time this evening to share with us. Like I said, I have just been watching you. I've known her since she was in 6th grade. She's like another one of my daughters, but it's been such a blessing watching how the Lord has just allowed you to just navigate through life and figure it out and make it happen. And you haven't stopped. So I appreciate you for taking time out to be on Tuesday Talk Live. Guys, we'll see you again next week on our next show.